This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. Hello. On today's Entrepreneurs Get Visible, I want to talk to you about the power of audiobooks and why you need to make sure that you are taking this platform seriously. Right now, in the UK and the US, approximately 44% of the population listen to audiobooks, which is kind of crazy. And what we're finding is that in terms of non-fiction books, so those of you who are planning to write your book to support your business, or maybe you have already published or self-published, what we're finding is that audiobook lovers are more likely to also go and buy your paperback. And in fact, audiobook lovers are consuming way more content. But only 17% of non-fiction authors bother with this platform. And there are a few reasons for that, I think. It hasn't been as easy as it could be to get your own self-published book onto audio. There are numerous hurdles to come across. The first being, well, do you narrate it yourself or do you get an actor to do it? And if you do, how do you go about doing that? And there are all sorts of platforms such as Audible's acx.com, which is the audiobook creation exchange, where you can match up, if you like, with actors, voice narrators, very established audiobook producers and audiobook narrators, and you can work with them on a royalty share-based arrangement. But how do you know you're getting somebody good? And what we find with audio is it's not just the quality of the performance. There is a huge value in the quality of the microphone, much like there is for when you listen to a podcast. Someone who's got better equipment and is recording in a better environment. In fact, the environment is probably the most important thing. But with audiobooks, there is a quality that is expected and, in fact, is a requirement for you to have your show up on something like Audible. It's very, very stringent and very, very strict. So they're hurdles in themselves. But the other thing is about the production of an audiobook. It's quite different and much more involved than what happens for a podcast. To put that in context, there are approximately 6 hours of editing and mastering and mixing that happens for every single hour that you would listen to on an audiobook. And that is where someone has pored over the most minute details of the indiscrepancies inside the waveforms, inside the audio files, in order for that experience of listening to be so crystal clean. Now, I personally am a huge audiobook fan, and you may have heard that actually that was one of my routes to becoming successful and well-known. I was a hugely successful audiobook narrator, specialising particularly in young adult fiction over in the States. And what was interesting is that often, even though I'm a British voice, they would recast a lot of the performances that would be on audible.com as opposed to audible.co.uk. I'm a huge lover of the audio. I have got children, so my own time in terms of sitting down reading was really limited. But you bring me a podcast or an audiobook that I can be listening to while I'm folding the clothes or walking the dog or in the car on the school run, then I am yours. What happens, though, when you are listening to particularly a personal development book or a business development book, I believe when we hear it on audio, that we are kind of living ourselves through the book as well. In fact, there are many books where I know that I have literally stopped in my tracks because something has been said that was so powerfully delivered. And there is that performance element in an audiobook that is missing on the written text. What we find as well is that often if you don't have your book on Audible, or certainly in any format such as that, then a lot of people won't actually go and buy your book because the majority of entrepreneurs and business people actually have a preference for listening on audio because they can take it with them anywhere and they're time poor. So if you're missing out, if you're one of that 83% who doesn't prioritize getting their book in this format, then you are missing a large portion of your potential audience. I think there's something powerful as well. If you are a course deliverer, if you are someone who delivers training, if you are someone who is wanting to elicit change in other people, when they hear your voice and you have narrated it yourself, then you are drawing them into your world. It's the reason why podcasts are so powerful. So if you are the person who has narrated a great quality version, a great performance of your book on Audible, you're more likely to bring people into your world. The quality does have to be good enough. So that's the recording quality, the narration quality, the production quality. These things are vital if you want to make use of that particular space. And this is something I've been thinking about more and more. As we were growing the podcast agency, and obviously with my audiobook background, lots of people who are writing their own books have been coming to me saying, Anna, how can you help me? How can you support me to get my audiobook out there? Obviously, I have copies of my own books, Get Visible and Podcast with Impact, up on Audible itself. So what people were naturally coming and say, is this something you can support me with? And at first I really resisted it because I think that great narration, you really do need to think about your delivery. And coming from that audiobook world where traditionally everyone's a little bit snotty about anyone other than a voice actor performing a book, I did stop and think, well, is this okay? But in terms of the personal brand space, if you really want to be that influencer, it's got to be your voice that is heard. So what I decided we would do is put together an offer to support self-published authors to learn how to narrate their own book properly. And I saw this as a way that I could bring in all of my background in terms of vocal performance. I could bring in some of my amazing associates and colleagues and connections who are some of the world's leading experts in vocal coaching. So not only the performance element, but the looking after your voice, because when you're recording something like an audiobook, it can actually be very draining on your larynx and your vocal cords. So having an awareness of how to counteract that and prevent issues from happening will actually mean that not only is your voice protected, but your performance is enhanced as well. So I've been bringing together some great vocal coaches together with really phenomenally experienced audiobook producers to live direct and then produce, edit, engineer, create the corrections, and then mix and master the tracks and take everyone and their books right the way through to that stage where they're actually up on Audible, because it is a bit fiddly behind the scenes. There's so many hurdles that you have to jump through. And we've actually been trialing this behind the scenes with our new offer. So I've actually opened a new branch of my business called Expert Audiobooks, and we are days away from our first 2 projects going out and being live, available for purchase. Now, what's interesting for myself with selling my own books is that what I find is my audiobook versions sell way more than my paperback versions or ebook versions do. And I make more profit. I make much more money. I get much more in the royalties come directly to me. And I want that for other people, because if you've got a great story, if you've got something that was good enough to be put in a book, why wouldn't you be utilising any other platform? This is something we're going to be growing as we go into 2022. Can you believe we're actually talking about 2022? It does feel beyond Back to the Future style future. We are going to be supporting many more expert authors to get their books out there on this phenomenal platform. One of the reasons that this is going to become so much more important is that Spotify has now partnered with a company, 2 companies in fact, one called Findaway and one called Storytel. And Spotify are going to be really prioritizing their spoken audio content. We've already seen them come into the podcasting space, but they're really going head to head, I suppose, with Amazon's offering in Audible as a result of having these partnerships. So we're going to find that more and more, and there's going to be more options to authors to get their message out there through audio. The other thing is that in Audible right now, because of the growth of Amazon Music, where they integrated podcasts into that service as well. When you have your audiobook in Audible, your podcast, if it's accepted as good enough quality by Amazon Music, will also be displayed underneath. So if you are an expert author and you have a great podcast and you have both of those things on audio, then you are increasing the amount of times people can come across your content. How powerful would it be for someone who heard your book or searched your book even on Audible for them to directly underneath see your podcast being promoted? I think it's powerful, and this stuff is not going away. I promise you, audio is going to become even more influential over the next couple of years. So if you would like to reach out to us to find out how we can support you to get your book, a quality version of your book on audio, where we will teach you and support you how to have a better performance, how to look after your voice, how to either go into a great studio near you or for us to enable you to create your own surroundings so that they are a great standard. We'd help support you get the equipment and get your setup in your own home. And we would then live direct you with an excellent audio producer and engineer who specialises in this format to get the most out of your text, to bring your book to life. Then I would love you to reach out so we can talk about that. And then we would support you to get it up onto those platforms such as potentially Spotify in the not too distant future, and Audible and Amazon and anywhere else that someone might be listening to audio. If you want to find out more, DM me wherever you're in touch with me, and you can come and find out about how we can support you to get your expert information onto audio.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.